Country.
England.
Gun.
Shot.
Agent.
Provocateur.
Murder.
Employment.
Skyfall. Skyfall.
Done. Some men are coming to kill us. We're gonna kill them first.
Do it.
Well, that very interesting little blip of an intro was Jon and Alex finishing debating androids and apples and, Alex talking about someone having difficulty setting up a MacBook Pro, which means that person must have been the most stupid person in the world. But we're not here for that. The Bondathon.
Subscribe to our Patreon to get that content straight away in your podcast.
I really thought that we were far enough away from that Casino Royale 67 episode that these two would behave themselves, and they've gone and done it. It didn't even take them 5 seconds.
We'd already agreed we're going to do
the
it.
Bondathon. Oh my god. We're getting very, very near to the end of the Bondathon. And, like all parties that have gone on an excessively long time, this is what happens. The Bondathon is back. Hello, Tailoring Talkers. Welcome. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, I apologise. But the Tailoring Talk magazine is back, and it is the Bondathon. My friends, I use that term loosely compared to when I've used it previously, and I are watching every single James Bond film in order from start to finish, one movie, 1 month at a time. We are reviewing Skyfall today. I'm here with Jon. Hello, Jon.
Hello, lovely. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Do you know what, actually? It's really nice hanging out with you guys. It's been a while. And we are also here with Alex. Alex...
I'm going to walk really slowly towards
We've
the
just
camera
seen your arse.
while
I thought for a second there, Alex, I could see a small Scottish manor house between those two peaks.
Oh dear, that wasn't intentional.
Our GoldenEye.
I was meant to be doing a pun,
on
and that
YouTube
wasn't
now,
the
be
joke. That wasn't meant to be
Please,
the joke.
anyone that is watching this, we need to get this video viewed more times than GoldenEye, because that's had over 50,000 views now. And Alex's bum crack deserves 100,000
Oh, no.
at least.
What's this going out on, Bobby?
Everywhere.
Apple,
Everywhere.
Google,
Oh,
everywhere,
okay.
everywhere.
All right, never mind.
Pixelate that bit, I'm sure.
And
You've ruined my
Yeah.
joke as well. That's the top bit. Never mind.
and we are also joined by our very special guest making its first appearance on the Bondathon, Alex's butt.
It was only a matter of time, to be fair.
I'm almost
It's
tempted to do
fine.
the same out of solidarity, Alex, to be honest.
Thanks, John.
But I won't,
I feel no.
This is the point where our regular listeners, our faithful Bondathon
Switch
regulars, check out and switch off. And this is also the point where anyone new to this channel and this podcast basically do a Homer Simpson in the bushes. What the hell have we walked into? Right, sorry, advertised content. Skyfall, focus people. This is serious, because it is possibly one of the most serious Bond movies ever made. If you haven't seen Skyfall, what are you doing here? Go watch it and then come back and join us. We are going to be spoiling the living daylights out of this film, and we're going to go through everything from behind the scenes stuff, the plot, girls, gadgets, that won't take long. The wardrobe, obviously anyone that's into tailoring, that's probably why you Google searched and found this podcast, so we will spend some time talking about that, the music, etc, etc, and at the end, of course, we will give our Bondathon rating and review. So, Skyfall. I'm going to come out and ask this question off the bat. Is it the best Bond movie ever made?
Yes. That's exactly what I thought when I watched it night before last. I just said to myself, how am I going to get away with saying a 10 out of 10 for this? It's just, I found it perfect.
Okay. Alex, you're not looking so sure.
So, I thought I went into this saying the same thing. This is my favourite. I'm going to give this one 10 out of 10. And I'm not giving it 10 out of 10, but I'm giving it something very close.
Okay. Well, we'll find out.
But yeah, and that's partly because I know what's coming up, which is a bit of a problem. So I think I can only really compare it when I get to the last one.
Yeah. Carolina's not here. She's abroad this week, so I am going to end up watching this film again because obviously we've been doing the Bondathon together, and I don't mind watching it again. But for me, spoiler alert, it's potentially not going to be my highest rated film. Back in 2012 when it came out, I thought it was the bee's knees. I mean, I just started my company. And we were lucky enough through the daughter of one of my clients who worked for a PR firm that looked after Heineken to then get roped into doing some of the promotional stuff for Skyfall. So we got involved doing a spy-themed day where they picked up 3 journos from their houses in the morning and they went on a series of missions throughout the day. And the break in the missions was going to Savile Row to get measured for a suit. And luckily, they didn't go to Savile Row. They came to little old me, and so we got to go to a lot of the after parties and the post-premiere party and all that sort of stuff. And it was great. I've still got my Heineken Skyfall beer bottles somewhere. They're on display. We've moved house, so I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere around here. And it was a very special film for that reason. A large percentage of our wedding tux sales have been the Skyfall tux. A lot of our grooms that have got married in black tie, that is the tux that they wanted. And 10, 12, 13 years later, if they don't know what tux they want, that's the tux they're probably going to get. The Skyfall coat, we just re-released it this year. And we've got that coat still in production today, year on year on year. Since that film, it's been the most popular coat that we make.
Did you spot it, though, in the film, Alex? Did you spot?
What, the coat? Yeah.
Did you spot the cool thing about it, though? That is...
No. Tell me what the cool thing is.
So if you see him, when he turns in the sunlight, it's not actually a black coat, it's a very dark burgundy. And I love that little...
That I did not spot.
Well, watch it again, see if you notice it. I love that little touch that they've added, a little spice of colour to it. It just makes it stand out a little bit more than just a standard coat, because Bond is Bond, isn't he? Yeah,
that might be a colour grading thing, dude. It's actually navy.
Well, we'll see, yeah.
No, well, what do you do for a living? What do I do for a living?
Okay.
Who was involved?
Who was
involved? Who was involved with the promoting of that bloody movie? Okay, so I can speak with some authority on this film. And at the time, I did think, when I walked out the cinema after seeing it, I was like, that is the best Bond film ever made. Like, even more than Casino Royale. I thought it was perfect. I've seen it a few times since, but watching it last night, it's not my favourite Bond film, and I don't think it's the best. Ooh. And I'll get into that at some point during proceedings.
We need to unpick that.
I've really done a 360 on this film, so we'll get into it. Have you two been day drinking, by the way, or are we safe?
No, I've not been.
Always.
I've been recovering from a 3-day hangover, in fact, so I've been staying away from the alcohol. Don't drink over 50, folks, because it takes you bloody days to get over it. Unlike Bond, who can drink every day, behind night and day.
Yeah, we all need the glasses.
Yeah.
We need the glasses with the scorpion. Yeah. That was impressive.
Okay. Right, Skyfall, released on October the 23rd, 2012, directed by Sam Mendes, starring Daniel Craig, who returns as James Bond for his third outing, running time of 143 minutes. In Skyfall, James Bond returns from the shadows after being presumed dead, ready to confront a new threat against MI6. After a mission in Istanbul goes awry, resulting in the loss of a hard drive containing the identities of undercover agents, Bond is called back into action when a former MI6 agent, Raul Silva, played by Javier Bardem, launches a personal vendetta against M, played by Judi Dench. The film explores Bond's loyalty to M and his personal struggles as Silver attacks MI6 from within, culminating in a showdown at Bond's childhood home, Skyfall Lodge in Scotland. Cast. Daniel Craig returns as James Bond, as I said. Judi Dench as M. Javier Bardem as Raoul Silver, possibly, for my money, one of the best Bond villains ever, and certainly one of the most memorable. Ralph Fiennes as Gareth Mallory. Naomi Harris is introduced as Eve Moneypenny, but we don't know that until the very end of the film. Ben Whishaw is Q, so we have Q Branch back for the very first time in the Daniel Craig saga. Berenice Marlowe as Severin, Albert Finney as Kincaid. Produced by Barbara Broccoli, Michael G. Wilson as usual, screenwriters Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, overseen by John Logan, probably. Cinematography, Roger Deakins. And then music, Thomas Newman scores his first Bond film. This is the first film since Tomorrow Never Dies that has not involved David Arnold. This is also, or the release of this film was also the 50th anniversary of James Bond, 50 years since Dr. No, which was quite special. And
it was in the titles, wasn't it? Sorry, no, it was in the credits.
At the end.
Yeah.
Because they do a reverse gunshot, don't they, in this film? The gun barrel shot's right at the end. Sorry.
Yeah, because that was the first thing I thought when the film started. I thought to myself,
there wasn't one.
There's no gun barrel still. Like, what the hell is going on? So it's the second. So in Casino Royale, I don't think there was a gun barrel at all. In Quantum of Solace, the gun barrel was at the end because it was meant to symbolise him completing his journey to becoming a 00. But in this one, they didn't bother putting it... Well, not bother, but they deliberately didn't put it into the end either, and I just wonder why. That's one thing that I've not been able to find out about. Anyone shed some light?
No, I don't have an insight on it, but I would say this really felt like a soft reboot.
Yeah,
like in a lot of ways, it was the same Bond, but it was a reboot.
It was almost kind of establishing rather than rebooting. Does that make sense? Kind of like settling back in to the good stuff. Don't know. It just felt like all the pieces being put back in place. You know, you had a new Q.
Yes.
And obviously, they're keying up a new M in this film, aren't they? But it's kind of like which is ironic when you think about it, because it was only like 2 more films with Daniel Craig. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. You two are doing great actually so far. Keep doing this sort of thing because you tee me up for what I've actually been
carry on,
writing
Bobby.
for the last 2
next?
days. Yeah, I will. Well, there was the challenge was reinventing Bond. The Bond franchise was facing a bit of an identity crisis by the time Skyfall came around. After the lukewarm reception of Quantum in 2008, many people were questioning whether Bond could continue to evolve in a post 9/11 world without losing the essential elements that made him a global icon. Enter Sam Mendes, a director with a more introspective approach to filmmaking, who had never helmed a Bond film before, but had a history of working with Daniel Craig in Road to Perdition. The rumour is that Daniel Craig himself actually asked Sam Mendes to come and direct the next Bond. So it's a sign of Craig's growing clout within the production team of the franchise. Mendes wasn't interested in making a typical action film. He wanted Skyfall to be a deeper exploration of Bond as a character, particularly his sense of loyalty and identity. This direction was risky, but it paid off. For the first time, audiences saw Bond questioning his place in the world, grappling with his loyalty to M, and facing his own vulnerabilities. The film wasn't just about saving the day, it was about saving MI6 and ultimately Bond himself.
This is why I think it's one of the best Bonds, if not the best. Because I loved the kind of the threads of the story that went through this. I loved M's relationship with Bond. This kind of, she's always very grumpy and down with him, but behind, and it comes out so much in this film. Behind, there's definitely almost a sort of a motherly love for him, which makes the final scene even more poignant, really. And I love the fact that for the first time, Bond's questioning his role, as a 007 when he gets shot by Moneypenny. No, I really thought actually that Sam Mendes kind of effect in this film really made this film.
So here's the I think here's the problem for me, because I'm actually looking forward to seeing it again in a few days' time, because I can watch it again kind of with my brain on the side and not be really deep in thought about it. Yeah. But I think the problem for me, when I saw... So back in 2012, I'd grown up on a diet of Roger Moore Bond movies in snippets, because when you're a small child, you're 5-6 years old, really... Well, firstly, the Bond movies were generally reruns on bank holidays and Christmases, right? So you're usually at relatives' houses or your grandmother's house with your cousins and stuff. At least I was. And you weren't really paying attention to the films. The points that you always paid attention to were the action sequences, anything with gadgets, explosions, cars, chases, all of that sort of stuff. And then the Pierce Brosnan films rolled around. The Timothy Dalton era passed me by completely, because we're then at that point in the late 80s, we're kind of in that era of Batman, and we suddenly started to see those big summer tentpole type movies. So the Timothy Dalton era didn't exist for me, and also they were rated 15, so that was a complete no-no being a 10, 11-year-old. Then you go into the 90s. I'm 18 and GoldenEye comes out. It's Windows 3.1. So no Apple Macs in sight, so little Alex is really happy. But it's Windows 3.1, so suddenly we can have wallpaper backgrounds on our screens, right? Sorry, not even 3.1. You got Windows 95 by that time. So, I had the GoldenEye was like the first wallpaper that I had, with the BMW Z3 and all the rest of it. And Brosnan was my Bond. I was really, from that point of view, he was my Bond, because it was the first cinematic Bond that I went, saw all the movies, bought them on DVD when they came out, rewatched. We had GoldenEye the game on N64. I was fully immersed in that world of Pierce Brosnan's Bond. But Daniel Craig came round, and so cinematically I didn't know anyone else as intensely.
Do you remember, though, Bobby, when Craig was announced, and I think the first shots, like leaked shots we saw of him, were in those tight bathers coming out of the water, and everyone was like, he's not Bond. He's short and he's blonde, and there was a lot of kind of backlash when it was first announced. And I wonder if that affected you.
Not really, because I'd just seen Layer Cake. Yeah. And during Layer Cake, knowing at that time that Brosnan wasn't coming back as Bond, I turned around to my wife and I said, especially at the end of the film, when spoiler alert, if you've not seen Layer Cake, just skip forward about 30 seconds now, because I'm about to spoil the ending. Ready? Okay. So here comes the spoiler. We don't know the protagonist's name throughout the entire film, and we only realise that at the end. And I turned around to Carolina straight away. We were dating at the time, and I said to her, he'd make a really good James Bond. So when he was announced, I wasn't bothered about it, because I was like, oh, okay, well, I called it, thank you. So that didn't really affect me as much. So really, what's happened now through the Bondathon, and this is I don't know, it's the blessing and the curse of the Bondathon. I've been able to go back with you guys and watch the Connery films that I'd never seen before. Watch the Roger Moore films properly, from start to finish, and actually pay attention. Then watch the Dalton films for the first time in my life. Revisit Brosnan. And now we're going through the Craig era, which is the most recent, and it's the most fresh in all our minds. The thing that was getting me throughout Skyfall was that it was very serious. And what I'd come to enjoy about most of the Bond films we'd watched through the Connery and Moore eras particularly is that they were fun.
The quips.
They were fun. They were funny. They, even Connery had, when he was funny, he was so funny. And, the gadgets and the girls and the cars and I don't know, each one was like its own self-contained adventure. You didn't need to be so, you know what I mean? It was like... Yeah,
this is a very different, different vibe to those films. And there were a couple of quips in this film which just landed really flat because they seemed out of place. There's one...
Yeah, very.
There's one that Bond makes after... He's on the lam with M to Scotland, and he goes to the garage and gets the new Aston Martin. I can't remember what the quip was, but he made a quip there, and it was just really poor. And because of the film, it just didn't fit. They didn't need to do it. If they're going to decide to be a straight film, then be a straight film. I wonder if they put that.
But even Ben Whishaw, when they introduced Q, and Q traditionally has been a catalyst for comedy, joke on joke on joke. But, you know, it was just a really flat, you know, exploding... Were you expecting an exploding pen? We don't really go in for that sort of thing anymore. And with that line, the potential of there being fun air in the balloon was basically taken out.
Yeah.
And the very fact that this is the only Bond film... This is the first Bond film, sorry, because we've got 2 more to come. But I cried at the end of this bloody film. I was sobbing at the point where, again, spoiler alert, M dies. And I was just, like, overcome with emotion. And then when he starts crying, because it's really the first time we see him cry properly, then that set me off even more. And I was like... I've got to knock 2 points off straight away because you made me cry. Bond movies don't do that.
Don't you think though that through the whole gamut of all the Bond films, there's been a variety of styles of production, and there's been humour, there's been a bit of sort of rapey slapping here and there. That the Bond franchise throughout the whole has changed and has evolved and has adapted. And I think maybe they wanted a more serious Bond in Craig because of just the way he is. Although reading the behind-the-scenes stuff, he shared a lot of jokes with Javier Bardem. They were both rugby fans, weren't they? And they had lots of fun during that slightly kinky scene where he's tied down in the computer room. But I think
I want to know how many takes that took, because I can't see them getting it done in less than 50.
But I do think
I really can't.
They're looking for a serious fight, and I gave it more points because of that scene at the end. Ironically, that scene that really got me, got the tears coming for me as well. I liked it for that. And maybe we want different things out of Bond films, Bobby. But I quite like the serious intent of this film.
It's not that this is not the same as this really toxic Star Wars debate that has developed.
Yeah.
And I'm going off on a tangent here, right? But there's all of that stuff. This is not what I'm getting at. This is I really, really totally appreciate that it has to evolve, it has to change, it has to go with the times. And, maybe the next iteration of Bond, or even the one after that, those films will not be for us. They like the current Star Wars stuff, although we're enjoying it.
Not everyone does.
They're not for us. They're for our children's generation, right? And these stories have got to be passed down and passed down and passed down. But I think it was just... it just made me sort of question, having now been through this journey of this cinematic universe, this series, this amazing franchise, it just got me questioning the feel, the tone of this sort of Daniel Craig sort of era. So don't get me wrong, I love it. I still think Casino Royale is one of the best Bond movies ever. I still, if not the best, I still think Skyfall's up there as well. In isolation, it is a brilliant, brilliant film. It really is. There are moments in there that you almost want to jump off your seat and just fist pump the air. I mean, that whole Javier Bardem's character's introduction, the first time we see him, is gold. It's the best entrance to a villain ever in cinematic history. Maybe apart from Darth Vader, actually. No, because Darth Vader does look a bit awkward in that suit. So this was better. And it takes a lot for me to say that, as a rabid Star Wars fan.
Bobby, is there a cultural reason, do you think, why Bond became more serious? A lot of films, culturally, you can blame a lot of the way they are made on whether they were Cold War era, or post-1940s and so on. Or, like when you look at the films like Wolf of Wall Street, when the 80s was, the business reigned. Is there a cultural reason, do you think, why the Craig films are more serious than previous Bond films? Do you think Broccoli Productions thought that they had to move in a certain direction, or was it because of the way Craig acts and was presented? Like, can he carry off the jokes and quips? Was that his style? I just wonder, because there are plenty of articles online saying how Craig both saved Bond and also almost killed Bond. Do you see? We might want to discuss this in a post-Bondathon podcast about the future of Bond next. But I wouldn't be surprised if, because there are rumours, aren't there, of it going back sort of to a young Bond era, that we might see the humour come back anyway. But I just wonder if it's a cultural thing that he's more serious. I don't know.
I think it just feels like a direction that, definitely going to Sam Mendes. Sam Mendes is not known for making comedies, right? Or sort of big action films. Although the next one, you could actually no, forget I said
Did Mendes
that.
do any Batman films? He didn't, did he? Not Batman, Spider-Man.
No,
films.
he didn't. So yeah, there we go. But I mean, you know, on the plot itself, the plot of Skyfall opens with a thrilling chase sequence in Istanbul that sets the tone for the film. Bond, in pursuit of a stolen hard drive containing the IDs of undercover agents, is shot and presumed dead. His fall from grace, both literally and metaphorically, leads to the crux of the story. MI6, more specifically M herself, are under attack by Raul Silva, a former agent turned rogue, played by Javier Bardem. Silva's vendetta against M is personal, driven by a sense of betrayal that mirrors Bond's own complicated relationship with his superior. Silva stands out not only because of Bardem's performance, but also because of the way the film contrasts him with Bond. Both men are former agents, but when Bond remains loyal, Silva is consumed by hatred. The final act, set at Bond's childhood home, Skyfall Lodge, brings the story full circle, making it not just an action-packed finale, but a deeply personal reckoning for both Bond and for M.
So this is a film where you cannot help but be invested in Bond and M. You cannot be helped because of the way that the plot's crafted. It's really hard not to be invested in this, and so there's so many parts of it that they tick off, and I think going to Scotland and to Skyfall, I think that for me sort of brings it full circle. So and I think that's why, while it isn't the lightest Bond in any way, it is a lot more serious. I think it just has so much more depth than almost any other Bond I've seen. Like there possibly one exception, but really this is the deepest Bond that we've sort of seen, because it covers a lot of things, and I think that's the problem with the humour bit, is that it couldn't really compete.
Can't marry them up.
Yeah, it just couldn't compete with that. And I think as we start talking through the particular scenes, as a general rule, I don't want to repeat myself, so I'm just going to say it once up front, which is cinematically they're almost perfect. There's very little that's done in any way jarring. There's so much that you can watch and just your eyes enjoy it because of how it's been done.
He's an Oscar-winning DP, and he did Blade Runner and a lot of famous films which I could ring off for you. But sadly, Roger Deakins left was it last year or year before last? I think it was last year. But yeah, he's got such a background in excellent cinematography. So, I mean, you've got a great story. You've got Sam Mendes directing. You've got Roger Deakins. I mean, this film's got everything going for it, hasn't it? Really.
That's
I think
it.
also what adds to the depth is the fact you've got a cast of amazing actors.
Great cast.
I mean, amazing actors, right? All of them, and even the Bond girl, who unfortunately meets her untimely and just really unfortunate demise. Yeah. Severine. So Berenice, she was so good in that casino scene where he says that she was
scared,
child sex slave, all the rest of it, and she was scared and so on.
So well, you're right.
So well. I mean, she was so good. It was such a shame she was taken out of the film so early. But again, I did notice. Did you see Did it irk you, the callousness of Bond, where Silver says, "Have you got anything to say?" and he's like, "It was a waste of good scotch." Again, it was that coldness that we saw in Casino Royale and in Quantum.
I think that's bravado more than anything else, really.
Where he's just, it's almost like he's just got to get on with the job in hand. That's happened. He'll process it somewhere else in his brain, but now's not the time.
You've got to remember with Bond, he's an agent that has to be emotionally detached most of the time. He can probably switch it on and off. I was more upset with Leiter's death, spoiler, in later films. We've seen him die before Leiter, but he has to be detached, but also he has to show the heavies around him that he's not flustered, because I think if he was flustered, that would ruin the surprise of the next part of that scene, wouldn't it, where he duffs them all up.
Yeah.
If he's flustered, he's a hard man.
And it wasn't a heartwarming scene. No. It wasn't meant to be a heartwarming scene. It was meant to be sort of finishing of that character, and then it was like, well, what's going to happen? What's he going to do? And he was much more measured and much more, and actually, but not in a clinical way. It's not, but it was just a case of that's done. I'll deal with it later.
Well, don't forget,
whereas previously you had him getting hugely emotional, and getting really quite nasty as a person.
Don't forget later on,
and so this is so much better.
Later on in the film, we discover, don't we, that everything leading up to the point where he's captured has been a plan by Silver to get his revenge on him and escape. And so this character that gets shot to him is just a cardboard cutout to him, and the fact that he's not really into ladies either is just another element to his complete kind of lack of compassion for her. I think every element of this film is so masterfully put together. I think that's why, for me, it's such a great film narratively. It's not there's no fat here at all in this film. I think everything's been completely sculpted in a very good way more than anything else. I mean, it may not be the best film, but it's one of the better Bond films, definitely, in your opinion.
Again, it's such a hard one though, because if it's like you said, John. It depends on what everybody wants. Something slightly different from Bond, I guess. And I think if you're someone who so this is where now I can kind of start to see the point of view of people who were maybe teenagers or young adults when the Connery films came out. So take yourself back to 1962, seeing Dr. No on the screen for the first time, and then From Russia with Love, and then obviously the big one for the time, which was then Goldfinger, and kind of what made those films, and then that same person ages and then gets to this set of films where there's very little joking around. It's all very, very serious.
It's very a lot less bling than the 60s.
Less bling. Yeah. You've got to really, if you don't pay attention to the plot, you will lose what the hell's going on, right? With all of these films, Casino Royale, all the way through to No Time to Die, and so you can kind of it's interesting, It's just really, really interesting as a time capsule.
Yeah.
Of that period of the last 60 years now. It is really fascinating.
It'd be interesting,
really, really fascinating
to see if we feel the same way about the evolution of the humour and the acting when we do the Mission Impossible films, to see if that has the same cultural change as the Bond films, because I wonder if we'll say the same thing about those. But
instinctively, though, I don't think it has, because I don't think the Mission Impossible films have in the same way, because they're over a shorter time period. First of all, you're going from mid-90s through to
Cruise,
now. Basically, so 30 years, I think, pushing it now, nearly 30 years, right? But also because from the third one, he really took over the production of those films. I think, was it the second one? No, it was the second one.
John Woo, wasn't it?
It was, no, it was the second one. Okay. It was after the first one, John. Because what happened was they couldn't get insurance for Tom Cruise. So he had to start his own production company so that he could do whatever the hell he wanted.
Okay. Well,
so they couldn't get insurance when they were like, oh yeah, like the first scene's going to be him hanging off a cliff with no harness or anything. Oh, just like, no, we're not insuring that. I was like, okay, well, we can't make the film if we can't get insurance. And Tom Cruise was like, screw that, I'll just make my own production company and we'll get on with it. And so he's had that level of control throughout the entire franchise that I think really they've evolved quite nicely. And from number 3 through to the last one, they've been very consistent in terms of quality as well.
Don't
very consistent.
Barbara has that same control over Eon Productions, though, do you think?
I don't know. I think there's too many. There's a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of money involved
when it comes to a Bond production. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot at stake. They want to take risks on one hand, but they also need to make sure that every single film is a hit and outdoes the last one. They've got script writers who've kind of gone off piste a few times, and they've had to bring other script doctors in to, rein them in and so on. There's a lot of moving parts in a Bond production, whereas I just think something like Mission Impossible, again, is just so much more tightly controlled and is more,
I don't
know. You know what I mean? So
contained.
Yeah, but I might be completely wrong. We'll find out next year when we get into that. Spoiler alert for everyone that is still going to be faithful to this podcast and channel. Thank you, by the way. So yeah, there we go. I mean, visually, you're right. Roger Deakins, he also worked on films like No Country for Old Men, Shawshank Redemption, absolutely beautiful, beautiful looking movies. And particularly for me, the lighting in the Shanghai scenes was just incredible.
Bobby, I rewatched this obviously on my new TV, which is OLED, and Shanghai looked stunning. Lights off in the living room and TV. Oh, it was good. It was like watching a new film, really. Sorry, Alex.
No, you're completely right. But also, even in other moments, there were deliberate choices for the colour and lighting. I mean, it is made for OLED. Yeah. If you have an OLED screen, an OLED TV, this is your film, because you get all the depth, and then you get that blast of colour, and the dark scenes are still lovely. It's so hard to fault it, like visually, because there is so much that it does so well. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Wardrobe work in this film was pretty good.
It's all Tom Ford, isn't it? It's all Tom Ford stuff again. You don't like that very much.
Yeah.
Really.
So classic Bond with a modern twist. I think in this film it was overall reasonably good.
I think I really like the suits in this film. I really like. It stood out. They've kind of. I think you mentioned this before, Bobby, with Craig's suits. Like in the past, a couple of them felt they were a little bit tight for him, and we discussed perhaps that's because of the scenes, the action scenes. And I know they made about 60 versions of the first suit to allow for the chase scene on the JCB, for him and his stuntmen, to allow him to have movement in certain scenes. But that first suit, which I think is the sharkskin suit, isn't it? It's the grey pick and pick suit.
Yeah.
I just love obviously there's that iconic moment where he adjusts his cuffs as he jumps through the back of a train falling apart. I mean, for me, I'm getting goosebumps now. For me, that first sequence is one of the standout best sequences of any Bond film. It's so iconic when he jumps into the back of the train and fiddles his cuffs.
Yeah.
I messaged Carolina during that, and I said, after that, when the title credits start, or the title sequence, and I messaged Carolina and I said, when you get back, I'm going to watch this again with you, because I've forgotten how bloody good this film is.
I might watch it again on my TV again this week, because it's still a long film, but it just pace is great and never bored. What did you think of Javier Bardem's outfit? His chocolate brown vest and his cream sports coat.
Oh, loved it.
It was so
absolutely
well
loved it. It's one of the reasons
for Javier Bardem, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I love that scene anyway. It's one of my most favourite scenes of any Bond film ever. But his introduction, that one shot, take of him walking slowly towards Bond and us, and it also meant that I could just look at that outfit for a longer period of time and just really appreciate it.
Crazy pattern shirt he's wearing underneath it just went really well with it. Like, very thoughtful.
Yeah.
And actually, thinking about where the location was, they were in that abandoned island, weren't they? Where the story was that they scare people off with a gas. Like, it seemed to fit really well with his environment as well. Kind of like a sort of dusty environment.
While we're talking about wardrobe, John, I've got some notes for you.
Okay.
So costume designer Janie Tamim was tasked with creating a wardrobe that reflected both Bond's classic image and Daniel Craig's more physically intense portrayal. Tom Ford once again provided the suits, which are slim cut and modern but still retain the sharp, timeless look associated with Bond. One standout outfit is Bond's grey sharkskin suit worn during the initial chase sequence at the beginning of the film. It's sleek, it's minimalistic, perfectly tailored for his frame, symbolises his readiness to take action despite his bruised and battered psyche. And that suit, again, it's another really popular wedding suit. If guys aren't getting married in black tie, I've got the Making of Skyfall book on display in the workroom, and I always flip to that scene. There's a nice picture of him on the motorbike in there. And I say, and I'll tell them, I'll say, what about that? And they'd, like, as soon as you talk to someone about turning them into 007, there's never an objection.
No.
Like, never an objection. In 22 years I've been doing this, it's crazy. that and that's the power of Bond. For the Macau casino sequence, Bond wears a midnight blue tuxedo. We mentioned it before, which harkens back to the elegance of earlier Bond films, while maintaining a modern edge required for Craig's Bond. And in the final act, which this is a bit that might interest you too, when Bond returns to Scotland, his attire becomes more practical. He wears a Barber X-to-Key-Toe
I love that jacket.
Beacon Heritage jacket, signalling this is a Bond who's out of his element, preparing for a more grounded confrontation. The rugged attire complements the stark, desolate backdrop of Skyfall Lodge, further emphasising the personal stakes at play. Yeah,
I want that.
I want that Barber.
That Barber jacket, right? So when the film came out, 2012, it may have been a few years after, but I remember. I think this is going to make Bobby cringe a bit here now. So Bobby, just put up your protective mask, suit mask.
Hey, I'm gonna close my ears now so I don't hear you.
So I saw a.
Did you get that movie reference?
See no evil, hear no evil. I don't know.
No, Chris Hemsworth in the female Ghostbusters.
Oh,
That's it.
I don't remember that film very well. Sorry.
I can't hear you.
I've only seen it once.
Yeah.
And that was enough. I went out and bought from Fat Face for about £100. They did like a Barber version of that jacket, which I loved up until the point because it's kind of close enough as I could get to that Barber jacket from Bond. But it wasn't until I saw 4 or 5 sort of dads, parents at my school, 20 years older than me, also wearing it, that I thought. Yeah, time to move on, and the zip eventually broke anyway. But I love the jacket. But you're right. That is an awesome outfit. Only comparable, I think, with his amazing the commando jumper he wears later on in No Time to Die. You know, the one with the navy. Kind of,
the N Peel jumper,
we'll
which I still want.
That's right.
So, but great outfit. And did you ask us? I did ask myself at the time. So Bond and them have dashed off in the DB5. You know, they've zoomed down the motorway to Scotland. He was in was he still in his tux at that point?
No, he was in. He was wearing a suit.
But where did he get the Barber jacket from? He wouldn't have been hanging up in Skyfall because they cleared the place when they sold it. So where did that jacket and outfit come from in the film?
It might have been in the boot of the car, or it was probably at Skyfall because Kincaid they wouldn't have sold clothes, would they? So would have probably kept some things for him.
I don't know. I think
maybe.
your idea of having
Who knows?
an emergency packed bag in the back of the DB5 is actually much more Bond than relying on some bloke in an old house to keep clothes back for him. Actually, yeah. It's a film. Who cares?
Is that the DB5 from Goldfinger? This is a bit of fan fiction now. Do we think that's the DB5 from Goldfinger? Or do we think that's the DB5 that he won in Casino Royale? And then he gave it to Q Branch and asked them to modify it?
I think the latter. That fits better into the timeline. It's quite poetic.
Yeah. But it's really funny because there is a line in the film where M says to Bond, "We've both been doing this for a long time."
Yeah.
So it's really funny because we're only on Daniel Craig's third film, and obviously, but there's a lot of time that's passed from Quantum of Solace through to this one, to Skyfall, by the looks of it. And I thought it was really telling that they chose to have him, with stubble for such a long period. The first part of the film, it was almost a beard.
Yeah.
And it was, with his white hair and stuff, he looks so much older, I guess we all do, even I do. When my beard grows out a little bit, all my grey hairs come through and I look like 20 years older. But it was just interesting, that choice that they made, and I get a feeling it was kind of deliberate to give us a feeling that a lot of time had passed between Quantum of Solace and this movie.
In terms of the car, I think the ambiguity was written into the film, but various people who've interviewed Mendes says that he wanted to actually pay homage to the Goldfinger DB5. So it set about basing the new car off that design rather than the Casino Royale one. So if you look, the Skyfall car actually is much closer in resemblance to Sean Connery's vehicle, which has the same license plates and is a British right-hand drive. So I think it's more of a homage to Goldfinger rather than a continuation of the Craigiverse more than anything else. which is quite cool.
Yeah. And talking about the DB5 and modifying by Q branch, etc., it was my tenuous way of trying to get Alex back into the conversation. Alex, over to you. It's gadget time. I should have a little jingle for that.
I checked out because gadget-wise, this is...
That's my jingle, sorry, carry on.
Inspector Gadget. Inspector Gadget. It's Alex Hansford.
Go, Alex, go.
Oh, thank you.
Go, Alex, go. Go, Alex, go. Sorry.
So this isn't a great...
Inspector
He's still
Gadget.
I've got to try and...
Inspector Gadget.
Can we fade him? Fade him down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just...
I'm in control. That's the problem.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, no, this is a really dull one when it comes to gadgets, because there really aren't many at all. I think the biggest part is just the reintroduction of Q with Ben Whishaw. That is the biggest sort of news out of the whole thing. And I do feel like you mentioned it earlier about saying, "Oh, we don't do that anymore." You know, it's really puts the dampeners on the gadget bit of James Bond. So I did miss that from this.
Alex, did you notice Q's mug when he picked it up and drank out of it?
Oh, I can't. I can picture it, but I can't see it. I don't know what it says. I can't remember.
No, at the time I did, because I was like, "Oh, that's quite cute," but I've obviously forgotten it because I didn't write it down.
On the back, so you can't see it, but on the front of that mug are all the Scrabble letters with their scores, and on the back of the mug is the letter Q in large size with the score for Q that he's drinking out of, and it's like a funny kind of. I'm kind of a a jokey chap, and I can have a laugh.
Brilliant.
Which I think is a lovely touch, because
I love that.
It's not overt, but it's there if you spot it, which is quite cool. Anyway, back to your gadgets.
Yeah.
So Alex, you can have the cup in your list if you want to beef it up a bit.
I'll put it in my list. I think the only thing I have is, so I have the radio transmitter and the Walther PPK with the personal. So they said it was mapped to his fingerprints but I can't remember what they palm print. Yeah, they said it was basically only he could use it with the three lights.
Which you knew
so that was
meant that they're going to have a scene where someone else tried it.
Absolutely, they set it up like right there. But it's so sort of quiet with a tech point of view and gadgets that like the official list then has all of the weapons and includes the light bulb bombs, which I thought was quite interesting because they were cool.
In the Home Alone scenes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely, the Home Alone scenes. So it includes that. So it includes that. It also includes the double barrel rifle from Kincaid, which I thought was a bit of a stretch. I was like, nothing fancy about that.
Does your list include the DB5 though?
It doesn't have it on here, but
he uses gadgets from the DB5.
Because at one point he flips up the eject seat.
He has the button.
When M's has the button off in a car, isn't he? And then also there's a point where all the dudes are approaching the house and he turns the machine guns on in front of the car and mows them down. So.
I love it when he flips up the ejector seat button, right? Sort of suggesting to her, if you don't shut up, you're going up there, and she just goes, "Go on, do it."
Yeah.
Go on, do it.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think this is the most like aware Bond. Yeah. Like it's self-aware of itself, and it does have little nods to things. It does it, and so in that respect, like all to it. The other thing is there are a lot of Jaguar Land Rover did really well out of this movie because they had the Defender and the Discovery and it's just tons. They must have been like very happy. But yeah, apart from that, it's such a light movie. There's the classic one, which I thought was quite funny, was obviously you've got your genius in Q, who's creates this whole sort of quantum cryptography element, and then he goes and plugs in plugs it into the secure network with two Ethernet cables, which I was like, okay, that's a big no-no. How could you get that wrong? I couldn't get my head around.
For anyone that's listening, these are the two IT geeks. This is the shit they do for their careers, basically.
What they call an air seal, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he's going, yeah, I'm the most. Yeah, he's literally saying, I invented this.
Yeah.
He can't smart me. At which point you go, oh yes, he can, because you just plugged that into the network, didn't you?
Do you know what else made me?
And it just
what else made me slap?
Go on.
Do the old Picard face palm? Was the visualization of the data. Like, oh, when you're being hacked, let's show a 3D globe rotating, and oh look, it's turning into a London Underground. Look, he's found the code, and then oh god, there's no code ever looks like that. It's just lines of text. You can make it
but it's to make it more interesting for us members of the audience that don't understand this shit. Yeah, it looks cool.
Like, okay, but even the hacking attempt, right? While we're doing it, while we're going off on that.
Look, even Siri does cool shit now.
Yeah,
Look, see?
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Android did it first.
Android's voice assistant never worked properly, but anyway.
It's Google. Google gets it right. So I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
Is it Google though? Because it depends on which one of 500 voice systems you want to use on Android.
Before we have a big argument about let's just not talk about Bixby. But I think yeah. But the thing is, it was like, yes, there were some cringe moments from a tech point of view, but it held together so well. It really didn't matter in the slightest.
I think they missed an opportunity.
It was good
with not having an Omega brand opportunity there with his watch as well.
Yeah.
Even if you just looked at the time, you know.
I mean, the Omega was a Seamaster Planet Ocean, 600 meters, which was the same watch I think he wore in Quantum of Solace. So there we go. But we don't really see it.
I've got two other things, which is a really funny nod to whatever that whole hacking rig that was in the Silver's lair.
The network shelves, the old
server
shelves.
Because they're just like, there's absolutely no air conditioning. There would have been really noisy. Yeah. I don't understand what they're meant to be doing. So again, not important to the plot, but I just felt like it was worth mentioning.
No,
so,
I'm totally with
so
you.
definitely that was super cringe. And this is probably one for those of you that have just got new houses and fancy swanky places in London. But a bit of a nod to the variable opaque glass that just turned from clear to opaque
in the prison bit,
at the push of a button. Yeah. So that I can fully expect to see that in Bobby's new place. That's my hope anyway. We'll see.
That was a cool gadget. That kind of opaque.
It was.
Thing. That was good.
Yeah. I've got a quote for one many years ago because I went to an architect for an extension and they must have been watching Grand Designs or something and thought I was loaded. They're thousands of pounds. And at which point I was like, nah, it's all right. I'll just get some blinds from IKEA. It's okay. I don't mind that.
Nice.
Anyway.
A bit cheaper.
Cool. Yeah.
I think I'm done.
Well,
Sony did manage to shoehorn an Xperia T into that as well. His phone. But it was so brief again.
Really could miss it so quickly, couldn't you? But yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was product placement was a big one in this one, wasn't it? Everyone was up in arms over the Heineken bottle in the scene in wherever he was after he got shot,
bar,
and in bed as well, because there was that whole controversy in the media about would he be drinking a beer and would he be drinking a Heineken and would he be drinking in bed? And the answer to that question is, well, yeah, he was. Shut up.
Read all the Bond books, and he's much more over alcoholic in the Bond books and the films.
Yeah.
Talking about drinking in bed, it's time to hand over to the great, the late. No, sorry. God, what am I doing? Killed him off. Sorry. The great, the voice. John Evans. It's Bonkathon time.
Okay, so shag number one was what I call Random Beach Brunette. And I think that's...
He's got names for them now.
Yeah, I always do. You can't dehumanise them, Bobby, for goodness sake. They're people too.
Yeah, just... you called her random.
I think because... the point of the first one is this is showing Bond's sort of post-bullet shot decline, isn't it? And he's like, he's doing shot games with scorpions, and he's drinking through to the morning, and that just shows him being kind of feckless and I don't care what I'm doing. And he gets up and takes painkillers for his shotgun, his shot wounds afterwards, and then carries on drinking. But and that's kind of throwaway, isn't it? That first one, and then the second one, as we know, is in Macau on the boat. And I couldn't remember her name because you don't actually. It's not very obvious. Her name's not very spoken out loud very obviously in this film.
No.
Severin. So I called, and bear with me, and I do apologise to anyone if this offends them, but I called shag number 2 "Sexy Sex Trade Lady," because that's kind of how that's how I kind of pieced together what she was from the film. Do you see? So it's not a great name for her, but I was very upset about her because she was, I thought, a really good Bond girl.
Yeah.
And it was very, very quickly after that he's in that room with her, watching TV. The whole scene was ruined when suddenly BBC News showed Hugh Edwards talking about the MI6.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
There's nothing the producers can do about that because he's been on the BBC in Bond films for at least 4 or 5 of them. But it was a bit of a sign of the times, wasn't it? Really. So there you go.
Well, the thing is, I mean, look, at the time we didn't know what was going to come out 12 years later, right? So you almost have to just put. You just have to put it aside, really.
Time, isn't it? So yes, just two in this film. But then it is a serious film, isn't it? I think any more than that, and you kind of lose the seriousness of it. He's just going around, conquesting basically. So back to Roger Moore again, aren't we? Really, or Sean Connery. So.
Did he? Even though we didn't see it on screen, but do we think? Yeah. Especially when she was giving him
it's implied, isn't it?
I don't think they did.
That was a bit of sexy cutthroat razor shaving, no?
I don't think they did because later on, when you see them together near the end outside Mallory's office, there's kind of that same tension as if, I just don't think they did. I think it's implied that she's teasing him a little bit, and they're gonna maybe they had that set up for another film, but I don't think she did. That's why I've only counted 2. And to be honest, I will only count definite, confirmed shags that we know have happened in the film. All right, implied shags I don't think count because Bond is never that sort of guy.
I think that's quite an honourable set of rules there,
I think so too.
John. Yeah, that's very good.
Cool. Music.
Adele.
Now we've talked about Adele's. We've talked about Adele's theme song before. We've mentioned it. And I always said that that's one of the ones that I tend to skip in my playlist when it comes on. But pair that song with the visuals of the title sequence, it's freaking amazing.
It's good. And it's a good Bond. It's a very Bondy song, I think. She's really paid attention to the kind of Bond themes and sounds. It's not a you don't lose any kind of Bondiness to it. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it's epic. It matches the grandness of the film as well, I think. And then I made a note about the lyrics. They reflect the film's themes of mortality, loyalty, and rebirth, with lines like "This is the end. Hold your breath and count to 10," echoing Bond's journey of being presumed dead, only to return to face his past and protect MI6, and try to protect M, and ultimately fail. Spoiler alert.
Doesn't she say and that she likes crumble? I'm sure there's a lyrics that says.
No, she doesn't say I like crumble.
And the crumble.
We will crumble.
I'm thinking I love crumble.
Alex?
That's brilliant.
I love crumble.
I love crumble too. It's my wife's favourite pudding, in fact. Crumble.
I need dessert. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think unfortunately Adele's sort of singing it lends itself to being reworded for any form that you want it to be. So I'm sure there are reworded lyrics for this song a lot.
I think Adele was pregnant when she made the song as well. Just as a fact, interesting side fact.
Yeah.
Can we have a quick nod to the title sequence as well, please?
Yeah, it was really good, huh?
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Really
anyway,
good.
That's very clever, I thought.
very good.
Yeah.
Still had boobs in it, according to my wife.
There's a very, very, very quick.
She does a boob watch, just so
there's
we know.
a very quick glance of a side boob, but it was very tastefully done. There was no
thank you,
areola
John.
in that at all. It was just a side boob.
I'm glad you were paying attention.
I mean, if you have to count shags, you have to count boobs, don't you? They're the first clue, surely.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Might as well.
The score for the overall score for the film was by Thomas Newman, and I thought it was very good. Thomas Newman is an acclaimed film composer known for his previous work on films like The Shawshank Redemption and American Beauty. This marked the first time, as I mentioned before, that a Bond film was not scored by David Arnold since 1997's Tomorrow Never Dies. Newman was brought on board largely because of his long-standing collaboration with director Sam Mendes. The two had worked together on films such as American Beauty and Road to Perdition, which also starred Daniel Craig. Mendes felt Newman could bring a unique and fresh musical perspective to the Bond franchise. Newman's approach emphasises tension, drama, psychological depth, rather than just action-driven motifs, aligning with the darker tone of the film. I think he did a really good job. Really good. I still think David Arnold's work on Tomorrow Never Dies is up there with the best. But as a composer coming in, I thought he did a great job. Much better than the guy that scored GoldenEye, for God's sake, because that really is too much plinky plonk in that for me.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Oh, sorry, John. I thought you were about to say something.
Well,
you were just
I was going to do some twangy guitar sounds, and I gave up because they were crap. Sorry. That's what it was, really. I'm still riding that. I'm still riding that Inspector Gadget theme tune high. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyone who's still listening at this point, as usual, write in. None of you ever do.
I mean, there is a genuine. Now's the good stuff. Now you've waited
this
long.
If you write in, there's a genuine prize waiting that no one ever writes in, but I always invite you to. But as you have probably guessed, we're not going to run through the plot, in order or anything like that. This is a general discussion review of this film, and there you go. And we're doing it that way because I got a migraine and I'm trying to get off this call. I mean, that's why I started with the ratings. I was like, let's just kill this early.
We haven't actually given our ratings yet, though, have we?
We'll do it at the end.
No, we haven't. But I was going to talk about the reception for this film because it was critically acclaimed, was it not, Alex?
It was.
It sort of did all right on the money front. It took a little bit of green.
Yeah, how much?
$1 billion.
$1 billion. $1 billion triumph. Upon its release, Skyfall was a massive success, grossing over $1.1 billion worldwide. It became the first Bond film to cross the $1 billion mark, proving that the franchise could still compete with modern blockbuster franchises like The Dark Knight and The Avengers. Don't forget, we'd kicked off all of that Marvel Cinematic Universe nonsense by this stage as well. Critically, the film was lauded for its performances, direction and emotional depth. It earned 5 Academy Award nominations, winning for Best Original Song and Best Sound Editing, amongst others. More than the awards, Skyfall solidified Daniel Craig's place as one of the definitive James Bonds. It's also set a new standard for what a Bond film could be. More than just a spy thriller, Skyfall was a deeply personal story that explored themes of loyalty, identity and loss, making it a film that resonated on an emotional level with audiences. I think it deserved every cent.
Yeah.
It was a great film.
Yeah.
It honestly was a great film.
I've got a quick trivia for you.
It just wasn't as fun. Yes?
So adjusted for inflation, what is the next highest earning
Bond film.
Yeah.
Adjusted for inflation. That means it's an older one. Moonraker?
Let's see what John says.
Thunderball.
He doesn't. Thunderball. You're absolutely spot on. John is right. Thunderball. This is it. There's inflation adjusted amount of 1.047 billion.
I said that.
Whoa.
I said that as a joke to wind up Bobby, and it's actually
no. It was absolutely true.
But then adjusted for inflation, because I don't know what. Do you have the number of what this film cost to make? It must have been north of 200 million.
Oh, I'll have a look at the budget.
Do you know what,
but yeah,
Bobby?
this was expensive.
So adjusted for inflation, it'd be interesting to know if Thunderball was actually the most profitable movie.
Whilst Alex
adjusted.
is pressing his buttons. So you say how much it cost to make. We talked about the Heineken controversy and how it kind of lacked integrity. Well, Sam Mendes said that got us 28 million towards making the film. So Heineken paid 28 million.
Yeah.
So, it might have been but it got the film made, and what a great film it is. And sometimes you have to be a bit. And also, at that point in the film, he was on the downer, wasn't he? And he didn't have any integrity. He was, so maybe it fits. Alex.
So here's the thing. Okay, so the budget for Skyfall was down as 150 to 200 million. I don't think there will be an exact figure. So. Yeah. So and so if you think about it as a proportion, right, then Thunderball definitely made more money because its budget was $9 million, and off of that, its box office was 141 million in that day. Okay, so going from 1965. So yeah, Thunderball absolutely raked it in compared to this.
Can I give you some perspective though?
Yeah.
So Thunderball, was it 1.8 billion? You say?
Thunderball was 1.04.
Okay. So
billion.
When adjusted for inflation, Gone with the Wind is the highest grossing film of all time, at $4.5 billion.
Because people were paying to get out of there because it goes on so bloody
maybe. but I mean that's almost 3 times.
Yeah.
But it does put into perspective. I mean, actually, for a Bond film to make that much money is pretty good. When you think about the money some of the more recent Star Wars films have made, that's still amazing, isn't it? And it just shows you what a beloved franchise the Bond films are, really. With hopefully a little bit less vitriol in its fan base than the Star Wars films as well. We're a bit more grown up, aren't we?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Let's move on to our ratings. This is going to be super interesting. So we'll start with John because we know it's going to be a 10. But
10
John,
10.
just to make sure, because this is our
This and Moonraker are my two.
Huh?
I think I gave Moonraker a 10
okay.
as well. Check the spreadsheet, Alex.
No, you didn't. You gave. Oh no, hang on. I'm looking at Alex. Sorry. You
I
gave
have the
You did
spreadsheet.
You gave Moonraker a 10.
Yep.
And your second highest rated films jointly were Octopussy.
Octopussy. Was it like a light pink colour? Octopussy.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh,
Actually,
dear.
the Octopussy is
That'll
colour
be-
pink, isn't it?
Oh my
can
god,
Yeah.
that'll be the opium.
How's the migraine? All right.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Octopussy.
And Goldeneye
Is
as
it-
well.
Yeah.
Octopussy.
Nurse.
Okay, sorry. What did you say? 10.
dear.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes, okay.
listen. Bondathon fans know that I do give high marks to these. I am the high water mark of ratings, and we then wait for you guys to sort of tear it down a few pieces. But I you know,
Well, no, you gave Diamonds Are Forever a 5.
yeah, because
so,
it needed to. It was crap. That's why.
and you gave From Russia with Love a 7.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, I need a Craig film to come out. See, that's why.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alex.
Well, do you want to say what my highest one is so far?
No, you're going to give your rating, and then I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
Okay. I'm going to give this a 9.75, which is my highest rating so far.
What-
but it's not.
What
10.
lost the 0.25 then in this film? What was that? A lack of fun.
There are a couple of. Yeah. So yes, there is an element of lack of fun, and this could be a little bit controversial, but Javier Bardem as Silver, I didn't like it. Okay, I know what he was trying to do. It had like a Blofeld like vibe to it, and but it just grated with me. But that literally, there's nothing else wrong with this film. It's basically practically perfect in every way.
Okay. So I'm gonna give it 8.75.
Oh, really?
That's
all- quite low.
How can you do that, Bobby?
Oh, it's
Okay,
still
so
good.
the reason is that I've given From Russia with Love a 9.5, Moonraker 9, and those are my two highest ratings. And then I gave The Spy Who Loved Me 8.5 and You Only Live Twice 8.5. And the reason I'm giving this 8.75 is it might have been a 9.5 or a 9 even, but I didn't act like if you gave me three Blu-rays and you said you can watch one of these but you're not allowed to watch the other two, and you gave me Skyfall, Moonraker and From Russia with Love, I would probably ditch Skyfall first, and it would be really hard to choose between the other two, because I just, you know, because probably if you're doing that to me, you're probably going to kill me after I've watched whatever one I chose. So if I'm only going to watch one, I want to go out having a good time. So it would have to be one of the other two, not this, because this one would make me cry at the end, and then you would shoot me, and then I'd be dead, and I'd die sad. So that's the reason.
Well, you know what we should do, Bobby? Right, because I'm looking at the spreadsheet at the moment as well, is we should just create an average for all the scores and see who's given the highest average. And then we can work out what I'm going to call the painted Bond bias. All right, so...
yes.
So I think we need to work out, maybe towards the end, to our final podcast, to reveal the Bond bias and see which person's given the highest ratings to all the Bond films on average.
Okay,
I think that's a great idea.
Cool. I'll send Alex a spreadsheet, and that'll be his job. I'm not.
That sounds like work again.
Yeah. I can do that. I mean, I'm sure Alex will enjoy it more than me, but
yeah, brilliant. But look, great film. Let's pretend we haven't seen the next one ever before. So we're off the back of this. We're really looking forward to the next one, aren't we?
Yeah. What's the next one?
Good. Spectre.
Oh yeah,
Spectre.
Sorry,
Penultimate
ladies and gents.
Bond.
He's old.
Layers to do.
Yes. Yeah. And Chris, what's his name? Christoph Waltz.
Ah, Waltz.
Yes, that's right.
One of my favourite actors.
Yeah. Okay. Blofeld.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you all for listening, those of you that are still here, and for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you can, round of applause.
Look, Bobby, if they'd been watching
I didn't
YouTube,
know it was recording
they
the
would have
video.
left after the first 10 minutes, if you remember rightly, when Alex left his seat.
Yeah, every time I put this on YouTube, it's always just the picture, and I never actually see our faces.
I don't always get time to edit the video versions because there's a lot of bloody work to do, and I've just been really busy the last few months, and that's why.
That's fine, Bobby,
also,
don't worry.
anyone who's still listening, I should have apologised at the start of this because I haven't put any of our podcast out for well over a month, but life has been getting in the way of a lot of things recently, so I won't go into that, otherwise you'll start crying like I did at the end of this film. But thank you, everybody. We will be back to review Spectre in the next episode of the Tailoring Talk magazine Bondathon. I have to keep remembering the rebrand. Thank you to Jon and Alex, as always, and thanks for behaving yourselves today. I was actually the one that went a bit out of control at one point. Inspector Gadget. It's Alex Hansford. And you can get in touch with us by hitting the message to show link. If you're listening in your podcast player, go to the show notes. It should be there at the bottom somewhere, because Jon told me to move it to the bottom because it used to be at the top. And on YouTube, you can just make comments on the video and, like join in the conversation. Was Skyfall your favourite film ever? Do you think it's the best Bond film? Or do you think it's just a piece of glorified fan fiction that doesn't fit in with the rest of the franchise? That thought has never crossed my mind. I don't know why I just said that. Join the debate. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much for all your support. And we will see you on the next episode of the Tailoring Talk mag. Bye-bye.
Bye. I don't know why I say it that way.
I've got a quick one.
Oh, God, here we go.
So I think
I could never hit that red button fast enough.
Is if they say, what they should do is if you've made it all the way to the end, right, you should leave a comment. And what you need to do is you need to put this word. And I think what we'll do this time is we'll say rooftop health and safety. And if you know at the end.
Was the fact he was standing on a rooftop at the end bugging you, Alex, more than the fact that he rode a motorbike across the top of a bunch of rooftops?
Yeah, it was a little bit. Do you know where it was filmed?
It was filmed Farringdon, probably, somewhere around one of the offices.
The
Number 25 Farringdon Street?
Yeah, so the rooftop they're on is the Department of Climate Change.
Where's that then?
Oh, interesting.
Just a little fact there. Thank you, Wikipedia.
I have already...
I was thinking...
I've worked out the averages,
I was thinking about... Oh, okay, go on then.
So far, on average...
Is it me?
Yeah, you're the highest. And I'm the lowest. But I think my score's slightly affected by the fact I wasn't present for Goldfinger and Dr. No. That brings my average down a bit. So I can put some rating into those films before the final podcast, even though I wasn't here. I might even go back and watch them again and rate them, and then my average can be worked out accurately. That's the thing. That's what I'll do for this podcast.
I might go back and listen to some of the early Bondathons. I know the Dr. No one was total shit because it was the first one me and Phil ever did, and it was quite early in the podcast as well, and I was really crap.
Well, I need to go back and listen to that.
Yeah.
See if any of you, what you say influences my rating before I choose it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Good luck.
I have a
Give you a
question.
prize if you can get through that. Yeah.
So, has anyone seen James Bond Jr.?
No.
What?
So that's a little bit of homework for
This
you.
was a thing, wasn't it? Wasn't it something
something.
from the 90s or something?
American animated TV series based on James Bond that ran from 1991 and ran for 65 episodes.
What?
Yep. I'm
Okay.
just saying. I'm gonna find the theme tune and we'll put it on the next one.
Cool. Well, just make sure that we're not going to get a copyright strike on YouTube for using it.
I'm going to have to just check that
I
out.
don't think you will.
Folks, so I'm gonna,
Anyway.
I'm going to say good night there.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to stop this. Nobody needs to hear John, like in his marital woes.
Bye, everyone.
So,
Thanks for
bye,
humouring us.
everybody.
All right.